Rubbing her eyes, Shiro felt weak as her body barely had any strength. Even sitting up seemed to be problematic as she swept her gaze across the room. She could see Een, Adi, Estrella, Nimue, and Izul laying on beds. All of them were unconscious with pained expressions. Furrowing her brows, Shiro looked around to see if she could spot Lysandra, but there was nothing else in the room except for a black cocoon in the corner. Is that Lysandra? Shiro thought to herself while trying to get up from the bed. Hearing some hurried footsteps outside of the room, Shiro glanced towards the door and saw Nantion arriving with a panicked expression. Seeing that she was now awake, he sighed in relief. Seems like I worried you quite a bit. How's everyone else? Shiro asked as she tried to sit up. Busy as usual. Madison's brought back quite the company, so she's just sorting out what she's going to do with them along with catching up on what's been happening in the city. After the fight, everyone had gotten quite the bounty of EXP, so they're just trying to reach level 1000 before the second part arrives in less than a week. Nantion replied while pulling out a chair for himself. Reaching towards Shiro, his hand was blocked by a barrier, causing him to smile helplessly. I see they're working hard. Can you tell me how long I've been out along with what this is about? Shiro smiled, pointing at the barrier surrounding both her and Lysandra. After you passed out, we got a notification telling us that the second half of the new age will arrive in 7 days. It's been 3 days since you've been out cold, but during these 3 days, Een, Lysandra, Adi Estrella, Nimue, and Izul have been experiencing changes to their aura. The company that Madison brought back are ancient lords of the Seven Sins. Each of them serve under Madison, and they have a divinity level of 2. Nantion explained as Shiro nodded. So on par with standard gods then. But setting that aside for now, Beelzebub created this barrier to prevent the aura of destruction from spreading, Nantion said as he conjured up an orb of light and transported it into the barrier. Watching the orb of light get consumed and extinguished in an instant, Shiro was silent. Judging by your silence, I'm guessing you know why that's the case, Nantion said as Shiro nodded her head. Leaning back, she took a deep breath and sighed. This might take a while to explain. Shiro smiled as Nantion chuckled. Thankfully, I have plenty of time to listen. Hearing this, Shiro nodded. Opening her mouth, she started to recount everything that Anima had told her about her past, her name, her identity, and what she was as a firstborn, how her presence would amplify the destructive nature of everyone around her, the past between her, Arya and Rokarn, and the cause of the age of demons and gods. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Seeing her sad expression while talking about how her existence, Nantion couldn't help but feel as though a needle was stabbing his heart. PFT, don't look so upset. I never said this was all doom and gloom. Shiro smiled as Nantion looked at her with doubt. When talking to Anima, she stated that I had already began cultivating the divinity of creation within me. If I want to find peace for this planet, then what I need to do is to cultivate a divinity that's on par with the primordial nature of destruction. It's going to be hard as I was created from the energy released when the universe was first created, but I believe in myself. If it was before, I would not be able to cultivate a creation divinity at all. But since I was incomplete, chaos has laid out the foundation for me. Shiro smiled while placing her hand over her heart. It's just a matter of me using this opportunity to build the strongest creation divinity, one that's comparable to my destructive nature. Hearing this, Nantion nodded his head. Though the first step is still to keep my nature in check. If it is not, it'll hinder my progression with cultivating a creation divinity. Shiro chuckled as she closed her eyes. But for now, I suppose I need to rest. My body almost ruined. I had an earful from Anima when she analyzed my wounds. Indeed you do. But don't worry, I'm sure that everyone will be okay. After all, we've been exposed to the stuff you do for quite a while now. We've all built up a resistance. Nantion joked as Shiro couldn't help but laugh. That'll be good. But for now, I think I'll rest for a day. I have a plan I want to execute, so I'll use this time to run a few simulations in my mind. Shiro smiled as Nantion nodded his head. I'll go notify everyone that you've woken up. See you soon. Watching Nantion leave the room, Shiro looked towards her interface. Unlike the system display before, which was mostly that of a light crystal blue color, her status screen had turned black with red hues around the edges. Not only that, now that she's reached level 1000, a few things had changed, namely the ones to do with her divinity. One of the things is that Tainted Shell was no longer there. As she had recovered a shard of herself, There's not much risk to falling anymore. Though in its place was a new title, Firstborn of Destruction. Most of the description was cryptic, as quite a few of the stats it grants were hidden under question marks. She figured that she'll see the whole title once she recovered her full divinity. Name: Shiro. Race: Spirit Demigod. Title: Expert Monster. 13, 290/100, 000 humans killed. Fratricide. Creator of the Frozen Hell series. Incomplete. Creator of Een-style Azura's Path. Seeker of Truths. Revolutionary. Celestial Empress EX. Benevolent Saint EX. Error code. Genocide. One of a kind. Virtue of Fortitude. Young Demigod. Goddess of Protection. Merciful Goddess. Young Goddess. 50% boost currently. Leader of Esharia. Realmbreaker. Godslayer. Firstborn of Destruction. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Level 1000. Class: Nanotech Goddess of Destruction. Divinity Rank 2. HP: 857, 500, 000/857, 500, 000/000. MP: 3, 325, 000/000/3, 325, 000/000/000. STR: 3,950,000,000. VIT: for 1,900,000,000. INT: 19 billion. AGI: for 1,150,000,000. DEX: for 1,150,000,000. DEF: 7,200,000,000. Unassigned points: 0. Attunements: Cosmic Ice, Tier 7. Apocalyptic Lightning, Tier 7. Stygian Steel, Tier 7. Astral Rift, Tier 7. Augmented with Calamity's Will. Void Star, Tier 7. Celestial Star, Tier 7. Aspect of Fire, Tier 7. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Spirit Essence of Wind, Tier 7. Spirit Essence of Earth, Tier 7. Aspect of Water, Tier 7. Aspect of Life, Tier 7. Tier: Nanotech, Tier 8. Skills: Error, Extraction, Nanotech Goddess, Celestial Mirage, Rift Strider EX, Divine Court Appointment, Shared Burden, Nanotech Engineering Tier 8. Analysis: Divine Gardens, Divine Insight of God, Nanotech Goddess Physique, Element Control EX, Soul Maiden, Goddess of War and Protection. Ancient Healing Arts: Fire of Life, Grace, Path of Ascendance, Phantom Path, Celestial Path, Pandora's Requiem, Reaper, Limit Break, Origin, War Saint, Divine Enchantment. Current Blessings: Asteria, Athena, Aphrodite, Ares, Artemis, Hades, Hermes, Poseidon, Nyx, Argus, Gaia. World-class magic. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Requiem of the Dead. Grand Support Class Magic. Requiem of the Demigoddess. Origin Spells: Time Flux, Other, Minimap, Inspection, Disguise, Combust, Heavenly Constellation, Aurora, Skill Alchemist, Hollow Deceit, Hitoma, Divine Language, Wrath of Stars, Eyes of the Gorgon, Miracle, Sigil of Night, Encroaching Darkness, Skill Scholar, Item Master, Limit Focus, Blessing of Chaos, Soul Siphon, Divine Runic Needles, Devour, Frozen Hell Arts, Chaos Energy. Looking at her stats, Shiro had a small smile on her face. I suppose I should stop you from getting stronger for now. If I let you get any stronger, I won't be able to cultivate the divinity of creation. Shiro thought with a small smile. Conjuring up the orb which was supposed to help her cultivate a second divinity, Shiro started to run process through her mind. With the memories of her past self now with her, she had several ideas on what she could do. The first one being to halt the natural progression of her divinity, and to do that, she needed to seal it away for the time being. In doing so, she'll be unable to use all of the skills that are linked to destruction but retain her natural stats. That way, it paves the way for her to focus all of her energy in cultivating a secondary class of sorts, one that focuses on creation. In essence, she'll become a level 1 with more almost 20 billion points in the INT stat. Though it was easier said than done since sealing away one's divinity could send her into a stasis. Hence why she needed a day to figure out how to separate the divinity from her body for now. Leaning back, Shiro looked at the ceiling. I'll grasp this chance that chaos had given me. I'll become something that can stand side by side with my destructive side. I'll become the firstborn of creation. Shiro vowed to herself as determination burned bright within her eyes. In order to isolate her destructive divinity so that she can begin to cultivate her divinity of creation, Shiro had to achieve two things. The first was to isolate her divinity. By doing so, she will be able to prevent it from getting stronger for the time being. The second is to learn how to use the orb to cultivate a second divinity. She also needed to empower the second divinity until it's something that can stand on par with the divinity of destruction. While the divinity of destruction may be tier 2 right now, it will be upgraded to tier 5 in the future. If her memories are correct, the divinity rankings are as follows: tier 1 demigod, tier 2 god, tier 3 primordial, tier 4 high primordial, tier 5 firstborn, and finally, tier 6 which only belongs to chaos. Tier 4 high primordials are beings like Nyx, but have cultivated their divinity to the extreme, giving them a power that is second only to the power of the firstborn. Most of the high primordials died during the First War due to her influence, and their souls were repurposed to make most of the primordials now. However, not all high primordials died. There were a few that survived, but their currently location is unknown. Though it didn't bother Shiro too much, she was more concerned about how she can balance her divinity out. To isolate my divinity, I need to cut out a portion of my source code, I suppose. But doing so will leave me incomplete. It'll definitely be dangerous, but if I can do it right, it'll give me a clean slate to work with. Shiro thought to herself, simulating the runes that she might need. She started to frown when most of the results did more harm than what was worth. After all, she needed a way to recombine herself with it at the end. She couldn't use the same method as the one she used to split the shard from herself, since that didn't isolate the divinity properly. It would still gain strength over time, so it was not what she needed. Looking down at her right arm, Shiro had an idea. Despite getting some of her memories back, she didn't learn more about error. What she did know, however, was that error could help her achieve more than just extracting or destroying source codes. It was something that will allow her to perform surgery on the source code. Whether that meant boosting their base parameters, adjusting their bloodlines, or even their appearance, error was the key to being able to change their source code. It was just a matter of teaching error how to do so, as well as how she could take control and help him. Similar to how he can take over her arm to rip out their source code, the reverse should also be possible. Closing her eyes, Shiro activated error as a part of her arm turned black. Red circuits gathered to create a small figure which seemed to be afraid of her. Understanding that it must be because of her aura, Shiro couldn't help but smile apologetically. Sorry, we'll fix this aura soon, okay? Shiro reassured as error nodded his head. So I called you out since I need your help. You know how you are able to use my body to take out their source code? Are we able to do the reverse, where I take control of your body and make some adjustments to my source code? Shiro asked as error paused for a moment before nodding his head. Separating the circuits from her arm, error transformed into a contact lens for Shiro. Raising an eyebrow, Shiro placed it in her eye and blinked a few times to make sure it was in properly. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Looking around, there was now an additional interface in front of her. I'm mostly suited for extracting and using the codes I rip out. If you want to make adjustments to your source code, I won't be able to help you. Seeing the message that suddenly appeared in front of her, Shiro was surprised that error could communicate like this. You seem surprised. After taking Rokarn's code, I got a little upgrade of my own. While that certainly makes things easier, can I borrow your body now just to see what I can do? Shiro asked, as error displayed a nodding gif of Shiro. Does it have to be me? Shiro asked. Well, I can use someone else as a base model, though you may want to do so at another time since the lens doesn't last long, and it's rather exhausting to lend you my body. Seeing this, Shiro nodded her head. So how do I borrow your body? Is it something I do from my side or something you do from your side of things? Without sending any more messages, error displayed an app in the center of her vision. Tapping the app, Shiro felt light-headed for a moment before realizing her left eye was now seeing things differently. Instead of walls and beds that are in the med bay, she now sees only numbers and letters that are packed into the shape of the object. Just imagine yourself moving and my body will move. I'll put the timer in the bottom so that you know how much time you have left. Nodding her head, Shiro could see a timer of only 10 minutes on the side. Furrowing her brows, she conjured up her core. The core of a god is what their heart is, and the source code is included. Controlling error's body so that she can explore her core in greater detail, her goal for now was to find how she could separate her divinity from herself without causing lasting damage. Hashtag. No luck. A red-haired man asked as the elf shook her head. No, it's just out of reach. Lyrica shook her head in frustration as there was a faint veil blocking the path to power. I don't know how to help you. I mean, I've already got what I came here and even learned of my true name. The red-haired man shrugged. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Voldrin LVL 999 Dragon Lord of Inferno. Yeah, congrats. But let me cultivate in peace, okay? Lyrica sighed as Voldrin shrugged his shoulders. Sure, I'm here since the others are calling you for dinner anyways. Amen. I know, I'll be right there. Lyrica nodded. Looking at her stats, she sighed. Lyrica LVL 970 Awakened Sword Saintess. Don't rush too much. The more you're in a hurry, the harder it becomes. For you to find a concept in this place, you need to ease yourself into the role, observe, and adapt. Voldrin smiled as Lyrica rolled her eyes. You've told me that countless times now. It's easy for you to say, Mr. achieves it in one go. Lyrica complained while making her way out of the room. Shrugging his shoulders, Voldrin followed behind Lyrica. Seeing Asher, Nitha, and the others finishing the preparation, Lyrica gave them a hand while waiting for the food. The food was rather dull in terms of flavors, but the amount of mana within the meat was plentiful. For Nitha, this was like a gourmet meal, which caused Lyrica to chuckle when thinking back to what Ian could make. Thinking about Ian, Lyrica couldn't help but wonder how she's progressed in terms of cooking as well as how Shiro was doing. Not long ago, they received a notification telling her about the second half of the new age. Considering the fact that it was still supposed to be far into the future, Lyrica figured that Shiro probably sped up the arrival by accident. Shiro told me about how she became a queen early on. She needed items that boosted the probability of her receiving a hidden class. For me to upgrade mine before even reaching the limit of tier 6, I'll need to find items, or at least something similar to an item. Lyrica thought to herself while looking at the skies of the beyond. Thinking about it for a moment, she looked at the levels of everyone here. Excluding Voldrin and her, everyone else was less than level 800 while Nitha and Asher just managed to surpass the 800 mark. Considering how much they were killing every day within the realm, this was only to be expected. Voldrin, you mentioned a heart of the realm before, right? Similar to a magic circle. If you destroy this heart, the realm collapse. Lyrica asked as Voldrin nodded. Yes, but there are multiple level 999 monsters there along with the ruler. If you were to piss them off, then that's a game over. I know, I don't plan to. I'm thinking of moving our base closer to the center so that I can sense this heart a little better. It might help me break past the last barrier. However, it might be risky to be that close to the guards, so I wanted to ask everyone what they thought about it. Lyrica asked as Nitha raised her hand. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Well, if it's closer, then that means more mana. More mana means more delicious food. Also EXP. Nitha isn't wrong. I think it's about time we find a higher level place to level up anyways. We're starting to slow down. While we may not be able to fight a guard, monsters nearby shouldn't be any problem. Asher smiled as Lyrica nodded. Start packing up then. We'll leave tomorrow. Keeping watch through the night, Lyrica kept an eye on any monsters that would come too close. She could deal with most of them even if they were higher level than her, but she was unsatisfied. This was the stage Shiro and Madison was at a while ago. Knowing the two of them, they've most likely progressed further. She couldn't remain stuck at this stage. She needed to find a way to boost herself to the next level. Shiro is more of a support fighter despite how powerful her attack is, while Madison is tank/berserker. Sylvia has the healer role covered while I am the attacker role. To fit in the party, I need to go all in on offense, something that can surpass Shiro's attack. While not exactly glass cannon for when I go solo, I need to put 99% of my focus on pure attack. Lyrica thought to herself as she thought back to her training with her mother. Hashtag. Listen, love, when partying with someone like Shiro, you need to be able to provide the most amount of attack possible since that's when Shiro truly shines. Her abilities lie in countering and stopping the enemy's every actions, making it so that they're practically useless in a battle. However, this will only happen when she has someone to tank and someone to deal damage for her. If she focuses on protecting or damage, her true abilities won't shine. Isilia explained while unsheathing her sword. Back in Aria, me and Shiro went off on our own for a while without a tank. However, thanks to how much attack we had, it wasn't a problem. It only became difficult when our opponent won't go down in a few hits. While we were able to offset that using mechs, armors, and nanobots, it wasn't a long-term solution. But if I'm being honest, Your party is in the perfect spot right now. Madison is a great tank. Sylvia is one of the best healers I've ever seen. Shiro is taking care of support, and you've got a fantastic mage. You have a blacksmith and an assassin as well. Overall, the party is highly balanced. As for the core, it's composed of you, Shiro and Madison. You three are the most important members when it comes to a boss fight. Everyone else's role is to support you three so that the fight can end sooner. However, as you realized, you are slowly falling behind. Madison has her demon heritage helping her. She'll only get stronger in time. Shiro is just Shiro. And then we have you. Your attack is good, but it's limited right now. As you are right now, you won't get any stronger than tier 6. Shiro is already tier 7, and I imagine that Madison will reach the same stage in the future. So what about you? Icilia asked as Lyrica looked down at her blade. I don't know. And what are you going to do about it? Icilia smiled. Experiment until I find a way. That's right. For me and you, we need to keep experimenting until we find a way. Unfortunately for us, we don't have something like nanobots or a strong bloodline. What we do have, however, is raw talent. Icilia winked as she took a deep breath. I was never able to bring my strength higher than the level of queens after I got a class change, but I believe that you can. Think of you three as an avatar. Shiro is the body, Madison is the shield. You need to be an invincible sword that can cut all. Adjusting her grip, Icilia twisted her body and sent out a wave of energy that cleaved through the nanotech walls. However, after a few layers, the energy dispersed, causing Icilia to smile helplessly. Unfortunately, I was never able to achieve this. She shrugged and looked towards her daughter. However, I believe that you can. There is a spark in you. As long as you don't give up, I believe that you can reach that stage. Hearing this, Lyrica nodded her head. ####. Opening her eyes, Lyrica glanced over at the rest of the party that were sleeping. Voldrin was sleeping off on his own, while the others were in pairs. Cadme and Gordon were sharing a blanket with Cadme snuggling up to him to avoid the cold. As for Gordon, he was slowly losing his blanket to Cadme, causing him to furrow his brows from the temperature. Nitha was biting on Asher's thigh, causing him to wake up before prying her from his leg. Forcing a smile, he waved at Lyrica before pulling out a monster leg and handed it to Nitha while she was searching for food in her sleep. With Nitha now satisfied, he went back to sleep. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Next shift should be Voldrin's. Lyrica thought to herself. Hopping off the wall, she woke up the dragon. *yon. Guess it's my shift now, Voldrin said as Lyrica nodded her head. Amen. Keep an eye on Nitha in case she tries to eat Asher again by accident. Lyrica smiled as Voldrin nodded his head. What about you? You seem like you don't plan on sleeping. Well, I want to head out for a bit of practice in the night. I'll be back in an hour or two, I suppose. Lyrica shrugged. All right. Just make sure you're well rested since the journey tomorrow will need your full focus. Voldrin reminded. Nodding her head, Lyrica made her way out into the wild. Summoning a sword, she narrowed her eyes at the night sky. How should I become the sharpest sword for Shiro? What can I find in this place that will help me achieve this? The Beyond is a place where everything is heavily empowered by mana. Everything that comes here will undergo a change. That includes us. Lyrica thought to herself as mana gathered towards her body. Swirling around her hand, she plunged it into her chest and pulled a light blue orb out. *ping. Shattering the orb, her body erupted with green and blue flames that made her look like a fire spirit. Snapping her fingers, Tier 6 magic circles suddenly lit up in the distance as a camouflaged monster was now suspended in the air. After coming into the Beyond, her senses had been further enhanced. Before, she could sense things from half a world away. Now she could almost encompass the entire world if she wanted. Plus, as long as she knows the realm they're hiding in, she can sense them too. It was a skill akin to a third eye. How many more of your friends are around? Lyrica narrowed her eyes. Twisting her body, she swiped her hand out, creating 7 more magic circles that suspended more of the same monster in the air, ripping them out from their realm. Normally, they would attack, causing damage to their internals while also draining them of their stamina. During their first week in the Beyond, these were one of the more annoying monsters to deal with. Hovering her hand over her blade, Lyrica contemplated for a moment before giving up and raised 2 fingers. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Cutting it across the air, all of the monsters were shredded into blood mist. They're too weak for me to use my sword on them, Lyrica thought to herself. Closing her eyes, She could sense a rather powerful monster approaching their camp. While it's roughly a day's travel away, it'll be annoying for the others to deal with while making their way to the center. Grabbing the hilt of her sword, she twisted her body and slashed the air in front of her, leaving a floating blade of energy. Adjusting her grip, she slashed 3 more times before slamming her palm against the back of the energy blades. Suddenly, layers upon layers of Tier 6 magic circles started to stack together as the blades shot through them, each one empowering the attack, while also enlarging the blades. Asterisk bang. Disappearing into the distance. Lyrica waited for a moment before making her way back to the camp as the flames around her body disappeared. Above her, Voldrin floated with a small smile. He knows that Lyrica could sense him, but since she didn't say anything, he continued to watch. Looking into the distance, he watched as a small cut in the ground left behind by the attack slowly grow into a large ravine. Closing his eyes, he created a few teleport runes and disappeared from his spot. Appearing above a giant chasm that stretched roughly a city wide in width, he chuckled seeing the remainder of the monster she wanted to kill. Its arms stretched out in a desperate bid for survival, while the rest of his body had been obliterated. And she wants to be even stronger. I wonder what her attack will be like when she obtains something that will allow her to reach level 1000. Though more importantly, I wonder what kind of enemy she wants to face with this kind of power. Voldrin thought to himself while watching the land heal itself little by little. Teleporting back to the camp, he finished his shift while Lyrica went to sleep. Controlling Error's body, Shiro started to view what it was like inside her core. Despite being constrained to a small orb, the inside was akin to a vast void with planets that seemed to represent her identity. From her old home as Anima to her Manhwa realm, everything that she had ever experienced was here. Naturally, that included times where she had resurrected but didn't accomplish much, unlike this life. A life where she was a frontline fighter with 2 daggers but failed to survive one of the dungeons and died without finding out about herself. A life where she only used wires since her body was sickly and fragile. A life where she couldn't use any mana at all since her links had been completely shut down, and even a life where she was doing good but died due to a curse. All of these experiences made up her core. As she was exploring her core in hopes of finding a way for her to cut off her divinity for now, a wave of black wires shot out from the void in an attempt to prevent her from going further. Narrowing her eyes, Shiro wondered what she could do in Error's body. Flexing her fingers, red circuits appeared around her and formed a shield, stopping the wires from reaching her. Raising an eyebrow, Shiro grabbed the wires and sent red circuits towards the source. Sensing a white silhouette version of herself who seemed to be the defender of sorts, Shiro figured that she probably needed to get rid of this in order to reach deeper into her core. However, the moment she started to channel her energy, the wires immediately disappeared. Blinking her eyes, Shiro watched as the white silhouette of herself kneel down and disappear. Mother, you know that it's your own core so it won't attack you. It's only because you didn't channel your energy that it thought you were an outsider. Though I must say your defenses are better than what most people have. I have never seen an avatar guarding a core before. I see. Also, did you just call me mother? Shiro asked while reading the message. Should I not have? Suddenly, Shiro heard a voice in her mind as it was the same one that she heard when her eyes were upgraded to see time strands. The way Error spoke caused Shiro to imagine that he was looking at her with puppy eyes. Oh no, it's fine. I was just surprised that you saw me as your mother. And also were you the one who upgraded my eyes? Shiro asked curiously. Well, I had thought that mother was simply a woman who plays a pivotal role in your life during the early stages and looks after you. You were a mother figure to me, and yes, I was the one. I had just received a slight upgrade and saw that you were struggling with time magic, so I infiltrated the system and got something to help you. Though it did punish me a little, I recovered quite quickly. Though if you're uncomfortable with me calling you mother, I can change the way I call you. No, it's fine. I was just surprised. I seem to be picking up children like vegetables despite still being a maiden. Shiro smiled while scratching her cheek. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Mother does have the tendencies of picking up people who look up to you as a parental figure. I can't deny that. Well, anyways, let's see what's in the center of my core. Shiro chuckled as she ventured deeper into the core. ####. Well now, the era has certainly left us behind, has it not, Beast Queen? Aisha grinned as she played around with a doll in her hand. Currently, she was sitting by the window while glancing at Theria, whose expression was less than happy. We both felt the fluctuations of mana in the sky a few days ago. A certain spirit queen certainly did not hold back against her foe. The very aura caused the earth to shake, leaving the two of us and any remaining queens in awe. Frankly, it's safe to say that our time had long passed. We've already lost our chance at winning this. Though considering your expression, you think otherwise. Aisha curled her lips into a smile while looking at Theria. You sure like to talk a lot. What are you even here for? Theria asked as Aisha burst out into laughter. PFT, ahaha. You must be desperate to tolerate me. If it was before, you would have driven me out without a second thought. Now look at you, even so considerate as to ask me what I'm here for. Aisha grinned as she suddenly appeared from behind Theria's throne. Feeling Theria's glare on her, Aisha raised her hands in defeat. Don't mind me, just a jester doing her job. Though since my audience is unreceptive, I suppose I'll talk about the main purpose. Aisha skipped out of the shadow and walked in around the room. After the fight, it's clear that we're no longer on the same level as Shiro. Even before the fight, she could crush my soul with a wave of her finger. It's clear that the winner has already been decided, though that'll only happen if she's the only one left. Now then, there are two choices for us. Either we continue this path and get slaughtered, or we give up our places in this competition. Surrender and retreat, allow her to win. And perhaps she might give us a place in her kingdom once her rule has been solidified. I heard that the undead queen has been quite well off with her alliance with Shiro. Her domains are protected, and the lightning queen is pulling her hair in frustration right now. You have a third option. Stop beating around the bush and tell me. My patience is limited. Theria warned as a dark aura wrapped around her body. I was leading up to it. The third option is allying ourselves with a god. It's not a preferred option, but as it stands, it's probably the only one that might work. We have both pissed off Shiro, and it's safe to say that she won't let us live in her kingdom. Aisha chuckled, waving her hand. Several cards appeared in the air in front of her. Each of the cards had a different crest that faintly radiated divine energy. Seeing this, Theria narrowed her eyes. You've already allied yourself with one, haven't you? Of course. A few reached out to me, so I picked the one that seemed best for my goals. Of course, they didn't do it free of charge. They only reached out for me since I talented in my tricks. And to not piss off the other gods, I agreed in helping them advertise a little. These are the gods that have an interest in you, O Queen of Beasts. Take your time in choosing, though you can go solo as usual and die a pitiful death. Aisha laughed, snapping her fingers. All of the cards shot towards Theria, blocking it with a barrier. Theria watched as Aisha's body was replaced by a doll that was winking at her. Feeling anger rise up in her heart, a portal opened near it, and a beast jaw crushed the doll. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Dismissing the barrier, she looked at the crests present on the cards. She recognized a few of them since they were gods that she had heard about before, but quite a few were unfamiliar. One of which was a temple that had a lightning bolt in the center. The energy radiated from this was superior to the other crests on the cards. Furrowing her brows, she picked up that card and turned it around. Information started to appear on the back as details about the god. Their power and goals started to reveal itself. Zeus, huh? Theria muttered as she was familiar with the tales of the lightning god thanks to the slaves that she had captured. Ignoring his lust, he might be a decent ally considering that he has quite the vendetta against Shiro. However, Theria tossed the card in the air and destroyed it with her beast summon. Do you think I don't know you're hard-pressed for allies after your little fight in the god realm? You've pissed off the primordials along with a majority of gods in your pantheon. They've all joined Shiro's side, and you think I'm stupid enough to join someone that's already a foot in the grave? You really underestimate me, lightning god. Theria sneered as the sky rumbled. Sweeping her hand, Theria destroyed all of the cards in one go as the void opened up in front of her. A pitch-black card appeared with a glitching crest. It would occasionally transform into a woman with 3 pairs of wings, a halo, and swords around her into a void monster that changed form with each glance. This is more like it. Theria smiled, accepting the card. Breaching the final layer within her core, Shiro found herself in a familiar white space. It was the same place where she chose her first divinity. Looking at the orbs that floated around the space, she recognized that they were potential divinities that she could cultivate. If these are potential divinities, then I guess this ominous mother *Ker is my destruction divinity then. Shiro muttered while glancing at the black and red orb that was slowly tainting the white space. That is indeed the source of the destructive aura. As for cutting it off from you without harming you, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you might want to do it fast. We only have 3 minutes left, Error warned as Shiro nodded her head, narrowing her eyes. She had already thought about a potential way of how this might work for her. When she split a shard of herself in the past as anima, she did so in a way where it split off a part of her. This included memories, divinity, and so on. A little bit of everything was included. However, for this, she wanted to isolate the split. Make it so that only the destructive divinity is cut out. Activating a Tier 7 magic circle, the space around the divinity started to warp as Shiro could feel pain spreading through her body. Though this was to be expected since she was performing surgery on her own code. Attempting to cut it off using her old method, Shiro frowned since the old method didn't allow her to completely isolate the destructive divinity. It would leave roughly half of it still within her core, allowing it to grow. Should she continue with this method, it would make cultivating the creation divinity a lot harder. Snapping her fingers, red circuits started to combine as a sword appeared in her hand. Since Sylvanes would undergo a change when activated with error, it made sense that the reverse could also work. When combined with error, Sylvanes allowed her to attack the core. Theoretically, a miniature Sylvanes should be quite similar to a scalpel. Adjusting her grip, Shiro dashed towards the orb that was corrupting her core and slashed around it. Asterisk cough. Coughing up a mouthful of blood, Shiro ignored her injuries for now and activated a Tier 8 magic circle. Black runes started to appear around the orb as a seal was slowly being constructed. Little by little, it was encased in a tomb of ice. Controlling Error's body to grab the seal, Shiro escaped from her core and separated her divinity from the main code. Ignoring the warnings and the weakness she was feeling, Shiro opened her eyes and looked at the two orbs in her hand. One was the size of a tennis ball, while the other was akin to a marble. However, despite the small size, the second orb radiated a more threatening aura. Taking a few deep breaths to relax her body, Shiro tried to activate another Tier 8 magic circle in order to seal the orb away for now. However, the moment she tried this, the magic circle shattered apart before it could reach completion. Mother, I believe it's because you separated your divinity completely from your body. At most, you have access to all of your power as a Tier 7, but anything higher is impossible. Though considering your lack of understanding of your other attunements, I would say that they're just Tier 6, but packs more punch. They're only Tier 7 in name. I see. Furrowing her brows, Shiro activated a Tier 6 magic circle and sealed the orb away in a personal dimension for now. Originally, she wanted to seal it in an environment where time had completely halted, but this was fine as well. Once Kronos comes to Earth, she'll ask him to help her out. With the destructive divinity now separated from her for now, Shiro could see that the aura around everyone else in the room had halted. The cocoon that wrapped around Lysandra started to peel away as Lysandra could be seen with an uncomfortable expression. All of her wings had been turned black with slight traces of white around the edge of the feathers as faint black runes could be seen on the surface. Lysandra LVL 1000 Seraph of Destruction. Mother, I'll put a proxy in place so that your core doesn't begin to destroy itself. It'll hold the things together for now until you place the original orb back. It's just a proxy though, so there is a limit on how long it can stay there. This is all I can do for now since I'm beginning to feel sleepy again. You can still activate me and use the skills, but I'll be asleep. Error said as his voice started to fade away. Amen, good night. Sleep well. Nodding her head, Shiro watched as the red circuits disappear. The pain that she was feeling was reduced slightly. It wasn't much, but it was still better than what she was feeling earlier. Sending her core back to its rightful place, Shiro tried to sit up, but failed. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. With no other choice, she looked at the notifications that the system had sent her. User is modifying source code. Breach warning. Continue to do so may result in severe health consequences. Recovery of divinity has been halted. Divinity has been separated from main code. Proxy has taken the place. Repair shall be halted for now. Certain skills no longer usable. Reading through all of the notifications, most of them were talking about how she has just damaged the crap out of her body. However, amidst the notifications, there were two that she was happy to see. Administrators have agreed upon a new test feature. You have been granted access. Alternative class unlocked. Curling her lips into a smile, she dismissed the warnings and checked what the prestige class was. Well, it's not what I wanted, but it's close enough. Shiro thought to herself. The prestige class was essentially a second main class where she starts at level 1 but retains her stats. Most of her skills are unusable, but she can still use all the elements she has attunements with. That includes nanobots, but the power and effectiveness has been heavily weakened to their state back in Arya. After all, the nanobots she cultivated in this life were heavily linked to her destructive divinity, though she didn't mind since this was akin to a blank state. If her nanobots could become a canvas for her destructive divinity, it can become a canvas for the creation divinity, as Chaos hinted at. With her main stat page mostly remaining the same, there was now a new tab. Alternative class. Name, Shiro. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Race, Spirit God. Level 1. Class, Skills. Except for her name and race, everything else was pretty much blank. Since it was new feature, it's to be expected. It was designed after she ripped out a part of her code after all. The main use for this new tab was for her to cultivate her creation divinity until it was as strong as her destruction divinity. Now that she had reached this stage, Shiro had a few minor questions. What the F***CK is a creation divinity? How the hell am I supposed to level up and fight with it? How the hell do I become the firstborn of creation? Massaging her eyes, Shiro wanted to think about the answers to her questions, but a wave of fatigue rushed over her. I guess I'll figure it out once I wake up. Though Nantion would not like the sight of this, Shiro forced a smile as she was about to sleep with her blankets covered with her blood. It didn't help that she was a little pale and had a bloody mouth right now. F***CK it. I need sleep more. Closing her eyes, Shiro drifted off to sleep. ####. What the hell is wrong with this girl? A man shouted out as he slammed his hand against the table, taking deep breaths in an attempt to calm the rage in his heart. He glared at screen while trying to figure out how the hell he was supposed to make a new feature for what the girl did to herself. But since most of the admins chose this path, he couldn't complain. There are many things wrong with the girl. She is what some may like to call an occupational hazard. A voice rang out as the man glanced back. Admin 8. The man greeted as Administrator 8 nodded his head. So goes the design? Administrator 8 asked as this was something concerning Shiro who his old friend, Admin 4 was a fan of. He had already helped her out a few times in the background, but he figured that he could probably do more. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. I'm working on it. Trying to make it so that it matches what she needs is not exactly easy since it goes against a lot of what's already been set in stone. However, since this is supposed to be her reward for killing Rokarn, it can't be helped. Though I will say that I keep getting a strange signal from this place that's bothering me. I feel like I should know what it is, but it keeps slipping my mind. Furrowing his brows, Admin 8 glanced at the map and noticed that he was pointing towards the North Pole. On the screen, a single egg could be seen. Waking up, the first thing that Shiro saw was Nantion, who sat next to her bed with a frown on his face. He was currently reading a book with a set of clean sheets and blankets besides him. Morning, Shiro greeted for a forced smile. Closing his book, Nantion stared at Shiro without saying anything. Coughing lightly, Shiro scratched her cheek. Sorry for what? Nantion asked as Shiro sat up properly, now feeling slightly better without her body being transformed by her divinity. Though of course it didn't help that her core was wounded after the little surgery she performed. Sorry for harming my body again and not telling you about it, Shiro confessed as Nantion sighed. I don't know what you did, but the corruption has stopped. Beelzebub had already removed the barrier since it doesn't pose any danger to us. Lysandra is still sleeping, but everyone else had already woke up a while ago. They're currently in the dining hall, and Yin's emptying our pantry again, Nantion said as he stood up. Picking Shiro up in a princess hold, he made sure she wasn't feeling any pain and placed her down on the next bed before changing the sheets so that it wasn't stained with her blood. I see, that's good then. Shiro smiled. So care to tell me what happened? Your name tag is also a little different, Nantion asked as Shiro nodded her head, explaining the surgery to him along with her new class feature. Nantion massaged his eyes. I get that you want to stop your divinity from growing, but surely there is a better option. According to you, what you've done is pretty much the same as brain surgery, Nantion said as he sat down with a sigh, sticking out her tongue. Shiro grinned and quickly created a veil to change her clothes. Rolling his eyes, Nantion reached into his inventory and pulled out her breakfast. So what's the plan now then? He asked curiously. Now that they had a few days till the start of the second half, they had some time to prepare. While the original plan was to figure out what the hell a creation divinity was and begin cultivating it with the help of the orb. However, I don't know what a creation divinity even entails, so it's a bit risky. I want to have a somewhat clear understanding first before I jump into it. Shiro shrugged. And performing surgery on yourself is not jumping into it. I mean, the surgery was needed anyways. I couldn't go around with my aura corrupting everything now, can I? Shiro replied as she dismissed the veil. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Since they were going to be free of danger for a few days, she wasn't exactly going to be dressed in her battle attire. Plus, she wasn't in the state to fight right now with half her skills sealed away, though her stats were still ridiculous. Dressing in a baggy white off-shoulder shirt, shorts, black stockings, and a pair of boots, Shiro smiled lightly as she gave her body a good stretch. Oh my breakfast is already here. Perfect. Shiro smiled while hopping onto the bed. You don't need to rush. Nantion chuckled as Shiro shrugged. Finishing the meal quickly, Shiro sprawled out on the bed. I want to sleep more. Shiro muttered before sighing. But there's work to do. Anyways, let's see if any of the primordials can help me with the creation divinity. Shiro said as she prepared to send a message to Nyx. You don't have to worry about that. My mom's already searching the divine library for information that might help you. A voice suddenly rang out as Shiro immediately summoned Sylvanes and pointed towards the source of the voice. However, seeing that it was just Hemera, Shiro dismissed her sword. How long have you been here? Shiro asked as Hemera hopped off her spot and landed next to Shiro. I've been here for a short while. Now that the world is adapting to the presence of a god, I have an idea on working around the restrictions. I should be able to prolong my stay here for a few hours, but Mum and the others can't. Same goes for demigods, since their body is too weak. But as for your question, Mum had already heard what you want to find out about, so they're searching it up now. Hemera explained. I see. Well, that certainly saves me the trouble. Shiro smiled. Now for the main reason as to why I'm here. There's quite a big commotion in the realms above. The recovery of the firstborn of destruction is not something that we can just brush off. And seeing as how you were literally talking about your divinity, I suppose it's confirmed that you are the firstborn in question. Now, if I was a rational god, I would have had every divine pantheon knock on your door to end you, since, to put it bluntly, your existence can't be tolerated by the universe. But since I'm your friend, and seeing as how quite a few gods like you, especially Gaia, we're going to see if we can find a way to help you. You've already halted the growth of your divinity, which definitely makes our job a lot easier. Had you not halted the growth, I would have given you something that they created for the purpose of sealing. But since you completed that step yourself, here's something to help for now. It's filled with divine energy, and it'll help foster the growth of a second divinity. When paired with your orb, it'll speed up the process quite a bit. Hemera smiled while handing over a golden orb that was filled with runic symbols. Well, that's reassuring. I'm sure that Gaia and Nyx wants answers, so let me make it easier for them. I'll type up a document of the full story so that they know what happened. That would indeed be helpful. Oh, before I forget, I should also warn you that a few gods have started to reach out to the remaining queens. Unlike the Raven, these gods don't demand their authority, so it's much more beneficial for them to accept the deal. While we're not sure of who accepted the deals, there's definitely a few that have a rather strong hatred for you. So while you're weakened, I suggest you keep your guard up. But with most of the warnings and messages delivered, it's time for me to do whatever I want. And the first on that list is giving you my understanding of the creation divinity. You see, with creation and destruction being in the center of everything, it's only natural that all divinities can be broken down into two aspects. While I have attack power, my divinity is mostly focused on rejuvenating life. My role is to preserve and stimulate growth. From my understanding, for creation to be on par with destruction, it must preserve and regrow as much as what was destroyed. The endless tenacity and vitality is the key, in my opinion. If you want to cultivate a divinity that's on par with something as crazy as being the literal firstborn of destruction, you must be able to create a realm with your own power and perhaps even more. I will say that it's much harder to create than it is to destroy, so your road will be a hard one. Hemera explained as Shiro nodded her head. I know, but it has to be done. If I wasn't the literal embodiment of destruction, this might be a little easier. Shiro chuckled as Hemera shrugged. True. So while I'm here, I can act as a messenger between you and Mom. With your power as the firstborn recovering, it is harder for Mom to get into contact with you remotely before the second half. But since I'm here, it doesn't matter. If you have questions or anything, feel free to call upon me. I'll give you some privacy for now. I am curious about your city after all. Nodding her head, Shiro watched as Hemera left the room. Visit Lightnovel Pub, com for the best novel reading experience. I should have asked her what class she started as. At least then I'll have a starting point. Shiro muttered, shaking her head. She paused for a moment before slowly turning to Nantian. I just realized something, Shiro said as Nantian raised his eyebrow. What did you realize? I think I might have lost my filter. Huh? What do you mean? Nantian furrowed his brows in confusion. I just said the first thing that popped into my head. Usually I would, think before I say something. I also feel a bit more active. I guess that's pretty normal considering that I've been laying in bed like a vegetable for the past few days, but I suppose a better word would be hyper. Do you think that performing surgery on myself might have removed my filter? I am also noticing a few missing sections in my database. Shiro frowned as Nantian was silent. That I think that's just a part of you becoming normal rather than abnormal. Blinking her eyes, Shiro opened her mouth. Being normal kinda sucks. Should I set something on fire to be abnormal again? Shiro pouted. That's arson. Che. Resting for a little longer, Shiro hopped off her bed and checked up on Lysandra. With most of her wings now dyed black, the destructive aura in her body was quite obvious. With her limited power, Shiro did a scan of Lysandra's body and saw that nothing was wrong. She was just adapting to this change through rest. Estimating that she was going to wake up in around a day or so, Shiro gestured for Nantian to follow her out of the med bay. So what's the plan now? Are you going to ask Hemera about the class? Nantian asked as Shiro shook her head. Yes and no. I want to let my body get used to the lack of power first, since it still aches from performing surgery. Once it's gotten used to it, I'll start making progress. But my main concern right now is this city. I've made this city too easy for the people. Without balance, it'll soon crumble away. Therefore, under the guise of not having enough resources, I'll push people to work harder, cultivate farms, and enter dungeons to sustain this city. Eventually, I have hopes that they will be able to sustain this city even without my help. And the first step to that is to implement a few changes to the rules. Shiro smiled while pulling out a tablet from her inventory. As you know, right now the system in Asharia pretty much favors those that do nothing at all in my opinion. Even if they do nothing, they'll still be given a good place to live, food to eat, and safety, whereas those that go to dungeons, enter the army, open shops, and so on pretty much get the same despite with some small added bonuses. With the difference between the two being so small, it's simply not worth the effort to go out and work. So I'll need to reduce the things provided to freeloaders, make it so that they get the minimum for survival, and encourage them to work their way up. The council will provide them with opportunities if they struggle at finding one themselves with tasks that are set according to their skill set. If a person is good at farming, the council will not send them on a mission in the dungeon. Instead, we'll have them open their farm in an open dungeon where people can go in and out. It saves me the effort of setting up a time dilation myself, while also giving new adventurers some work and experience in fighting small mobs. They'll protect the farm from monsters as beginner missions. Shiro explained as Nantian understood what she was going for. I'm not too worried about spirits, demons, and a few other demi-human races since they're pretty well disciplined. There's a clear hierarchy and everyone follows it. The problem is humans and elves. I'm pretty sure a few of the humans would protest about the chances. I'm hoping not, but it's best to have lower expectations for these kind of things. I'm seeing my fair share of idiotic people after all. Some would continue to taunt in the face of danger, as though the will of God will protect their worthless asses from extermination. Shiro shrugged. Entering the lift, Shiro and Nantian made their way to the top of the tower, where the council was. Bang. Pushing open the door, Shiro grinned. Listen up, everyone. We're making a few changes here. Samuel, you're my scapegoat for this one. If they want to complain, you're the first wall of defense. Shiro declared as Samuel choked on his saliva. He was once an important member of the Spirit Council, but now he's nothing but a meat shield for Shiro. While it is good to make things easier for people, promoting laziness is a bit no-go. We want productive people to carry the legacy of sentient beings to the next generation, not personified vegetables that only knows how to eat. *T, sleep, maybe F***CK, and reproduce a next generation of freeloaders. First change. We're reducing the benefits given to those that aren't working. If they don't work, they don't get the luxury. Are you writing this down? You better be writing this down, or else I'll make sure you won't forget it. Shiro grinned. Hearing this, everyone in the room immediately started to type up the new rules. *PST. MN. Feeling someone tap him, Nantian glanced over and saw Samuel. Is Her Highness feeling okay? She seems a bit off, Samuel asked as Nantian chuckled. Well, let's just say she's a little drunk. Don't mind it though. She's still her usual self, but just says whatever pops into her mind. As for the new rules, don't worry. She wants the city to be able to sustain itself rather than produce a population that only knows how to freeload. It'll be good for the development of the city. Nan Tian reassured as Samuel nodded his head. I can hear you two talking about me. My 2 ears are working perfectly well. Samuel, you can exercise your old bones in the military with Sheena's help. As for you, Nan Tian, you can take care of my documents. Shiro said as Nan Tian smiled. So, as usual then? MN. Shiro nodded. Visit lightnovel .com for the best novel reading experience. Seeing this, Samuel's smile twitched at the blatant favoritism. What? You look like you have a problem with my decision, old man. Shiro asked as Samuel quickly shook his head and escaped before Shiro could do anything else. PFT, it wasn't like I was going to make him do more office work. Plus, he's been doing paperwork for too long. He needs to stretch his body more. Shiro shrugged. Well, enough about the old man. Let's continue with the other rules. With Shiro implementing new rules, Nan Tian sat down at a computer and started to type up a public service announcement on the new changes. #####. It didn't take too long for the announcement to spread through the community. Since everyone had registered in order to be classed as a citizen, passing the information was easy. But the fact that their luxury was disappearing in a few short days caused some dissatisfaction. While none of them have been verbal about it, Shiro could tell that they weren't happy, though that didn't bother her too much since this was for their benefit more than it was for her. With the new policies out of the way, Shiro started to think about what class she wanted. Most of the creation divinity type classes she had heard about has been mostly to do with healing and support. If she wanted to cultivate something similar, becoming a healer was a good start. While her nanobots have the properties of creation, they're too closely linked to her destruction divinity. Her plan for now was to cultivate something suitable before integrating her nanobots into it. That way, her class can be pure creation rather than destruction. How should I even clear a dungeon if I only heal? Shiro muttered as an idea popped into her mind. If creation is to preserve life, then that means life continues to grow. Eventually, they'll grow old and die, reincarnating into the next cycle. I just have to age them using creation divinity, so that they die of natural causes. Wouldn't that also be destruction? Nan Tian raised an eyebrow. Well, what else should I do? Am I supposed to make friends with the monsters and have them clear the dungeon through suicide? Shiro pouted. Well, with what you told me, Anima mentioned that too much of creation and life will also crumble away. An eternal paradise, one where they're so comfortable that they don't need to do anything. Eventually, their comfort will take them to a death without you doing the deed yourself. You are merely giving them a safe space, similar to Asharia. Nan Tian suggested as Shiro thought about it for a moment. You're not wrong. Creation and destruction is not inherently good or evil. There is good destruction such as purging a tumor and bad creation with the replication of parasites. Just because I have the power of creation doesn't mean I have to be a saint that is the embodiment of good. Creation can be rather twisted in its methods. Shiro muttered as her lips slowly curled up into a cruel smile. Creation stimulates growth. While it does not destroy, too much of anything is not good. I can potentially create a spell that forcefully drains on their vitality until they die. The spell itself was technically used for healing despite the fact that it overstimulated their vitality. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Alright, I think I have an idea. Shiro chuckled as she turned around and faced Nan Tian. Not to toot my own horn, but I think I was pretty kind as a destroyer. What do you think about a cruel creator? Shiro narrowed her eyes as Nan Tian laughed. Is that not just the biblical God in some people's eyes? He who created natural disasters amongst men. True. In that case, then let my path on creation be one paved with destruction. I am someone who seeks balances after all. Shiro grinned. During this life, she wasn't exactly allowed to choose her first class. Due to her race passive along with the fact that nanobots followed her, her started class was predetermined. Now that she was picking her third class, she could choose whatever she wanted, and the best one to fit her idea of a cruel creator was healer. With the class healer, she'll be able to make adjustments to all the healing spells however she wanted. The only question now was hidden classes along with how she should level up. Shiro wasn't sure if this class acted the same way as the standard class, leveling up through EXP or something else. Hemera said that using the orb would increase the speed, but this class was technically level 1. Perhaps it's that way because I'm already level 1000. Since I have already reached the peak in terms of level, cultivating a new divinity is just me leveling up again which might mean I need divine energy instead of EXP. Shiro thought to herself. I can theorize as much as I want, but it's still easier to just ask Hemura about it. Let's go to the others now. I got a few questions for Hemura. Depending on her answer, I'll be changing my class to healer. I don't think I need to run the dungeons again, but who knows? Shiro smiled as Nantion nodded his head. She's currently with the others in the food hall. They've stopped eating for now. Perfect, Shiro smiled, jogging for a moment. Shiro was about to create a portal and leap off the edge when she realized that her portals were linked to her nanotech. Seeing no portal appear, she floated awkwardly for a moment before looking back. I suppose we're flying there normally. Nantion chuckled as Shiro scratched her cheek. Pretty much. Arriving at the food hall, Shiro could see that Een had reserved the whole place today. With everyone enjoying the banquet that she cooked, Shiro spotted Een arm wrestling with Hemura in the middle of the room while the others were cheering. Go get her, Een. Sylvia cheered as she had clearly had a few drinks now. Besides her, Chunyu was silent, but his cheeks were a little rosy. Clearly he had his fair share of drinks too. Of course, not everyone was cheering for Een since that would be unfair for Hemura. Madison and Helion were encouraging the goddess, while the 7 ancient lords were talking to one another about the evolution of alcohol. Seems like everyone is having fun. Shiro called out with a smile. Seeing that it was Shiro, Adi quickly jogged over. Are you sure you should be walking around, Mum? Were you hurt badly? He asked with concern written all over his face. Both you and I know that I'm rather tenacious. Plus, after being stuck on a bed for a few days, I deserve a walk around, okay? So what's happening then? Shiro asked while Adi pulled out 2 seats for Shiro and Nantion. Visit Lightnovel Pub, com for the best novel reading experience. While Big Sis Een was boasting as usual, and Hemura challenged her to a contest. So far, there had been 4 rounds. A contest of speed, dexterity, reaction time, and strangely enough, cooking. Hemura won all of them except cooking, and now they're doing a strength contest. They're just doing to have fun since Big Sis Een might have drank a little too much. Adi forced a smile as Shiro shook her head. Let your sister have her fun for now, I suppose. Thing will get quite busy in a few days after all. And speaking of which, I might interest myself in a few drinks now that I've sealed my divinity. Shiro smiled. Upon hearing this, everyone became silent and snapped towards her direction. I'm kidding. Even if I sealed away my divinity, my physical strength is still abnormal. I won't do something stupid like getting drunk in my own city. If anything, I would do it in a dungeon so that I can clear it. Shiro rolled her eyes. Sitting down by one of the tables, she pulled out some juice. Don't mind me. Continue with the contest. Shiro grinned. Enjoying the atmosphere for a while, Shiro started to explain what happened along with her plan. Hearing that she practically performed a brain surgery on herself, Madison slammed her head against the table, shattering it in half before replacing it with another one. Honestly, I'm not even back for a week and you hit me with the Shiro special move. Madison rolled her eyes. Shrugging her shoulders, Shiro looked towards Hemura. You said that I can ask you anything and you'll pass on my message to Nyx and the others, right? Shiro asked as Hemura nodded her head. Then can you ask them about this? Creation divinity is not inherently good, so theoretically, I can use creation to kill people. If healing is to preserve life, then stimulating growth and causing them to die of old age can still be classed as creation. I just want to see if my thought process is on the right track. Shiro smiled as Hemura's smile twitched. I can go ask that. It'll take me a few hours to give you a reply though. So if there's anything else you want to ask now. MN. I also want to ask them about how divine energy can help me level up. I have 2 theories. One is that I still level up as usual with EXP, and the second is cultivating mana/divine energy will grant me levels. With the orb you've given me, I'm thinking the answer is probably the second one. And the final question would be whether or not they know of hidden classes that belong to the creation side of things and their unlock conditions. That way I can have a little head start in cultivating my second divinity. Shiro replied, nodding her head. Hemura opened a portal and stepped through. Since you're having a class change, I'm guessing you'll be pretty busy for a while. Anything you want us to work on while you're away? Aram asked as Shiro nodded her head. In fact, there is. I want everyone to boost their level to 1000. If possible, see if you can cultivate a divinity, but I'll be honest, I have no idea how to cultivate it. I got mine after a pretty tough trial, so you might want to ask Hemura about that. Shiro scratched her hair. Though I will say that you're right about me being busy. I'm going to go on a little solo adventure. It's been a while since I'd done one of these without Nimue with me. Huh. Nimue blinked, hearing her name being called, and realizing that Shiro wanted to be solo and not having spirits in the mana realm. Visit Lightnovel Pub, com for the best novel reading experience. Isn't that a bit dangerous? Nimue furrowed her brows. Not exactly. I want everyone to begin making preparations and cultivating their divinity. With the second half of the new age arriving a few days from now, we'll no longer be fighting queens or empresses. Remember the feeling of helplessness during the fight against Rokarn and use that to spur you on during training. All of you need to get stronger quickly, and the best way to do that is for you to focus on yourselves rather than me. I can handle myself well enough, and depending on what happens, I'll be doing pretty easy dungeons to level up. With my physique, it'll be a walk in the park. Shiro reassured as Nimue frowned before nodding with a heavy sigh. After the party was over, Shiro stocked up on a few items that will act as fail-safes if things do go south. While she was doing this, she could tell that Nantion wanted to come along, but he too needed to reach level 1000, so he didn't say anything. Don't be too stressed out about it. Once you get to level 1000, everyone can party up and wreck some sh*t during the second half of the new age. Shiro chuckled as Nantion nodded his head. Stay safe out there. We have dungeons in Asharia, but I'm guessing you plan on venturing out into the world. Pretty much. There are more opportunities outside of Asharia in terms of cultivating for a creation divinity, though I'll be back before you know it. Shiro chuckled. Talking to Nantion for a little longer, they waited for Hemorrhous' return. After 3 hours, a portal opened near them, and Hemorrhous stepped through. Sorry for the long wait. They were compiling all of the information useful for you in this book. Classes, hidden classes, and their unlock conditions have been recorded along with the discovered method for cultivating a second divinity. It's mostly aimed for sub-divinities, but with yours being a second core divinity, we're not sure how effective it'll be. Regardless, it should help out somewhat. Hemorrhous smiled, handing over a tome. Quickly flipping through a few pages, Shiro was quite satisfied with what she saw. It even recorded Sylvia's hidden class within the logs. Thank you very much. This will certainly make my journey easier, Shiro said while placing her tome in her inventory. Double-checking to make sure she hadn't left anything behind, she bid everyone farewell for now and hopped through one of the portals she set up in the teleport hall. After leaving Asharia, Shiro didn't have too many worries. All of Asharia's problems could be handled by Nantion since she had prepared all the necessary tools before Rokarn's fight. She could somewhat confidently leave on her own journey without worrying. Of course, if something major did happen, she would not hesitate to unseal her destruction divinity and teleport back. While it may not be beneficial to perform surgery on herself multiple times, it was still better than ignoring an emergency. While she did want to hang out with Madison after being away for a while, time didn't allow it. With the second half coming in less than a week, she couldn't slack on her preparations. After she had stepped through the teleporter, Shiro found herself in London. Or rather, what's left of London. Seeing all of the broken buildings, shattered dungeons, and monsters that roamed around, Shiro stretched her body and pulled out the tome that Hemorrhous had given her. Let's see. There isn't a hidden class option for the starting class, but there is one during the first class up. The easiest standard healer class that I can obtain is Healer and Medic. A healer primarily focuses on stimulating their vitality to heal, while Medic actively heals the wounds through understanding and speeding up the process. With my skill set, Medic is probably better than Healer since it's more compatible with my nanobots. Once I fuse the two together, having Medic as my foundation is probably better, Shiro muttered. While reading the tome, she sensed a monster creeping up from behind her, but she ignored it. Since she had separated her destructive divinity from her code, she was akin to a defenseless civilian to their senses. She's used to suppressing her mana, so they couldn't even sense a single drop, while her physical prowess was stupidly strong despite what she looked like. Waiting for the monster to get close enough, Shiro closed her book just as it pounced for an attack. Asterisk, KRRR. Turning her head, she used her mana to amplify the wind that was sent out due to her closing the book. The result was a wind blender that shredded the monster and sent its flesh and blood scattering through the wind behind her. Seems like cutting out my destructive divinity also disabled my passive. Monster aren't scared *+ of me now, Shiro said as she hopped onto the rails of the bridge that she was on. Narrowing her eyes into the distance, Shiro tried to see if she could sense the Awakening Shrine. While monsters may be born with a class, the Awakening Shrine was a shortcut for people to get their first class. Depending on the requirements that have been met, you can freely choose your class from the list given to you. All she had to do was to find this shrine and select Medic as the class. I came to London since this city is in a better state compared to the other major cities. The shrine should be usable, Shiro muttered while pulling out her phone. Searching up where the shrine was on the map, she started to make her way over. On her way there, plenty of monsters tried to ambush her, but they were dealt with quite easily. Level 500 monsters simply could not deal with the physical strength of Shiro. Plus, her strength stat was abnormally high for a mage. A flick of the finger was enough to obliterate them to the next generation. Arriving at the location on the map, Shiro looked up from her phone and saw the collapsed path leading deep underground. While considering that the shrine should be directly below me, this should be enough. Activating Rift Strider EX, Shiro jumped into the rift and made her way down. Since this was skill she received from Een, it wasn't disabled when she separated her divinity. Jumping through the void, Shiro smiled when she spotted the shrine beneath her. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Seems like it's intact. I've already met the requirements for medic, so this should be pretty easy. Leaving the rift, Shiro landed beside the shrine. However, just as she was about to activate it, she noticed that there's signs of people living here for a while. Raising her eyebrows, she didn't think that there were still people taking shelter so close to the heart of the city, especially considering the fact that it's more dangerous here. Maybe I'll look for them after I get my class. Shaking her head, Shiro channeled her mana into the shrine. Suddenly, the system interface flickered and class options appeared in front of her. Reading through the list, Shiro chuckled seeing that most of the recommendations were combat ones. Scrolling past them, she eventually found medic at the bottom. But before she tapped the option, she noticed a rather interesting class below that. Snowmancer. Seeing as how her own class was in the starting options, Shiro guessed that anyone who fulfilled the requirement could get the class. Of course, their power can't be compared to her since she was the firstborn of destruction, but they should be able to reach her same peak in Aria. The Snowmancer class itself was powerful if you had the right tool. Thinking about it for a moment, Shiro hesitated. Nanobots inherently had the power of creation considering the fact that you can make anything as long as you have a blueprint. However, while it did indeed have the power of creation, it was overshadowed by the destructive part of nanotech. Even if she could cultivate the power of creation with nanotech, it could easily be overshadowed by the destructive nature. Choosing this might make it hard to balance the two divinities together in the future. Thinking to herself for a moment, Shiro eventually settled on choosing medic. She can always infuse some nanotech into her class in the future. Plus, with some of the hidden classes she can obtain by stepping on this path, it didn't make sense to limit herself to Snowmancer. She was already the goddess of nanotech. No point repeating the same class twice. Class obtained, medic. Name, Shiro. Race, spirit god. Level 1. Class, medic. Skills, cure, dispel, purify. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Now that she had gained the class, medic, she gained 3 new skills. Technically, even without the system telling her about these skills, she could already simulate their effects with her current skill set. If anything, Shiro guessed that it was pretty much just formality. Rubbing her chin, Shiro glanced at her left arm and summoned Sylvanes. Stabbing herself in the arm, she dismissed Sylvanes and cast Cure. Suddenly, a Tier 1 magic circle appeared on her palm. Despite the fact that it was only Tier 1, the mana being radiated from the magic circle was comparable to Tier 6. Despite my shallow understanding, I can still push a Tier 1 spell to have the same effects as a Tier 6. I suppose I can say that I have the strongest level 1 healing spell. Shiro thought with a small chuckle. Glancing up at the ceiling, she opened a portal to the rift and jumped out of the underground room. #####. While Shiro was obtaining her second class, a hooded figure was wandering through the streets of a destroyed city. URG. Groaning softly, the hooded figure clutched her head with a pained expression. Sis, where are you? Where are we? She muttered. Memories flashed through her mind. She remembered a surgery with her on the bed. Her thoughts were muddled, mixed with the images of slaughter which she commenced with her own 2 hands. Gritting her teeth, the figure collapsed on the floor as tears streamed down her cheeks. Sis, I'm scared, she whispered as pain shot through her body. Her arm started to transform as she panicked and tried to control it to no avail. Watching parts of her body transform to suit combat, the woman could feel her heartbeat quicken as fear was evident in her eyes. Big sis, nip him. Where are you? She thought to herself as violent urges surged forth. Gritting her teeth, she looked around her for any living creature that she could get her claws on. Spotting a pair of monsters in the distance, she immediately crouched down on all fours and dashed towards them. Black aura erupted from her hands as Tier 6 magic circles were activated. Before she could even say anything, the woman slammed her hand down and activated the spell. The flesh on her arms started to shift once more, digging into the ground beneath her as she could only close her eyes and avert her gaze. Hearing the sound of crunching, she could tell that her arm must have transformed into a pair of jaws and started to eat the monsters as her stomach started to become full. Feeling disgusted, she felt the substance travel up her throat. Visit lightnovel.com for the best novel reading experience. Throwing up, she could see that it was the flesh of the monster. Trying her best to hold back her tears, she tried to transform her arm back to normal so that she could continue her journey. She just wanted to find her sister again. Walking through the ruined city, a pair of adventurers glanced around the corner with caution. The male adventurer wore a ragged white shirt, a dirty jacket, jeans, and a pair of boots. Strangely enough, on his back was a giant bag which seemed to contain a myriad of swords. One would usually store their weapon in the inventory, so his act of carrying his blades was rather uncommon. He had black hair that had blue highlights and a pair of red eyes. The second adventurer was a girl with short blue hair and red highlights around the edges. She wore a white bandage over her eyes, so one couldn't tell what color eyes she had. She wore a black long-sleeved dress and hid behind the male adventurer. Holding onto his sleeve, she had a nervous expression. "Iris, what's the average level of the monsters nearby?" The male adventurer asked as Iris furrowed her brows. "Judging from their mana, level 500 to 600. Let's see if we can find another way around," she replied, causing the male adventurer to frown. 500 to 600, huh? Yeah, that's a bit out of my power right now. TSK, I don't know what they ate, but they're becoming more active now," he muttered. Looking around him to make sure that they were clear, he pulled Iris' arm and dashed across the street. "Which route is safe?" he asked while keeping an eye out on monsters. "Route A, C, D, E and F are filled with monsters now. B is open, but monsters are wandering outside of the entrance," Iris replied after a short pause. It should be within your capabilities, 9. Iris added as 9 nodded his head. "Grab on tight then. I won't slow down," he said, sweeping Iris into his arms. Inserting mana into his legs, he stomped down and shot into the air, landing on the roof. He jumped to the next as he started to travel across the rooftops. As he approached what he called Route B, he unbuttoned the bag on his back, allowing his swords to fall down. *bang. Follow new episodes on the lightnovel.com platform. Landing on the ground, he allowed Iris to hop off before stomping his foot down. Tier 5 magic circles lit up on all of the swords that he dropped. Clasping his hands together, each of the swords shot out and started to massacre the monsters that was wandering outside of the tunnel. "How long until the level 500 start coming here?" 9 asked as Iris was about to reply when she froze in place. "Iris," 9 raised an eyebrow, feeling the space around them freezing. He looked up to see a portal being opened. Within the portal, a dragon slowly manifested itself. Its head extended out of the portal and started at the two of them. Juvenile Void Dragon LVL 750. Opening its mouth, energy gathered to form a Tier 6 magic circle. Widening his eyes, 9 gritted his teeth and prepared to fight back. However, before he could, Iris opened her mouth. "Someone else is coming. Someone stronger than this dragon." Hearing this, 9 was a little surprised but trusted Iris. Ever since she was little, her senses regarding mana has been stronger than average. The only downside to this was that her sight was heavily impaired. Her eyes were a little too sensitive to the changes in her surroundings, so whenever she opened them, she would be bombarded by information. The white bandage around her eyes acted as a barrier that prevented this. Before the dragon could fire his breath attack, ice started to form on his body. Its eyes widened with fear as 9 wondered who did this. "I'm guessing you two are the ones that were camping out near the Awakening Shrine." A voice rang out behind them as the two of them glanced back. Sitting on the roof of a building, Shiro looked down at the two before turning her attention to the dragon. Just as she jumped into the rift to leave the underground shrine, she sensed a dragon flying through the void and create a portal. Curious as to what was happening, Shiro followed behind it and didn't expect to find 2 survivors. Strangely enough, they were actually able to mask their mana and avoid her detection. Of course, this was only when she was doing a standard sweep of the area. Unless she was specifically looking for them, they would be able to hide from her for a period of time. "Well, we can talk later. I'll deal with this dragon. Though if you want to smack him around a little to get more EXP you can. I'll restrain him for you." Shiro smiled while checking their level and class. Updated from lightnovel.com. 9 LVL 450 Formation Blade Master. Iris LVL 400 Enchanter of Stars. Looking at Iris, 9 thought for a moment. If this woman in front of him could really restrain the dragon, then this boost in EXP would be extremely helpful. However, there was a slight problem. Shiro LVL 1 Medic. Not only that, her title would occasionally glitch out, fading between white and black. With such a strange name tag, 9 wasn't sure if she could really do it. Plus, he knew that she was definitely not a level 1 medic. If she was, she would not have been able to freeze the dragon, nor could she make Iris think that she was stronger than the dragon. He didn't know the extent of her power, but he decided to trust his instincts. If you do not mind, then I shall accept this kindness, 9 said as he stomped down. All of his swords started to radiate a destructive aura as tier 5 magic circles appeared on the blade. Seeing this, Shiro smiled and narrowed her eyes at the monster and the dragon. Opening her mouth, she released her mana. No body is allowed to move except for these two. Sensing the oppressive mana that was exploding out from Shiro's body, all of the monsters shivered in fear while the dragon was trying to escape into the void. However, with Shiro keeping him locked in place, he was unable to leave. If he closed the portal, his head would get ripped off. Thus, he could only wait in place and hope that Shiro was kind to him. While the monsters were frozen in place with fear, 9 grabbed 2 of the swords and dashed towards the dragon. Behind him, Iris created a charm out of mana and threw it into the sky. Exploding with an astral radiance, flickers of light started to connect to one another, forming a constellation above her. A similar pattern appeared on 9's blade. This content is taken from lightnovelpub.com. Narrowing his eyes, his speed increased dramatically and disappeared from sight momentarily. Reappearing in front of the dragon's eye, he twisted his body and cleaved downwards with his 2 swords. Even without knowing the skill, Shiro could tell that he didn't have enough power to harm the dragon. Even when targeting the eye, which was one of the weak spots, his sword simply did not have the attack power. While she may not be a proper support, she still had a few skills that she could use to help him. Most of her skills had been locked away, but due to skill alchemist, she could always make more. Remembering one of the support skills that she had recycled before using nanobots, Shiro waved her finger and drew a rune in front of her. Berserker Enchantment, Dragon Slayer Aura, Elemental Edge. All 3 of these skills would help him overcome the defenses. Berserker Enchantment would increase his power dramatically. Dragon Slayer Aura caused him to ignore the natural defenses of dragon scales, and Elemental Edge infused all of the elements into one attack. It was similar one of Shiro's older skills that required her attunements, only this time repurposed as a support skill instead. Feeling boundless energy wrap around him, 9 widened his eyes in surprise. Poochie. Cleaving through the scales with ease, he watched as his blades tore through the dragon's flesh, shredding the eye, and left a ghastly wound stretching from his eye down to his jaw. Just as he was about to go for a second strike, he flinched, feeling the strain on his body. While the result isn't bad, he still got a decent amount of damage with that strike. I thought that he would be able to land more than one, but this should be enough. Hopefully the system gives him a decent amount of EXP. It's not like I need it, Shiro thought to herself. On the way here, she did kill a few monsters, but her level didn't even rise by 1. She was still level 1. Shaking her head, she looked at the dragon and began testing her theory on the divinity of creation. She wanted to heal this dragon so much until it ran out of vitality. A dragon's vitality was one of the best amongst the monsters. If a dragon died to this, then that means the other monsters shouldn't stand a chance. New novel chapters are published on lightnovelpub.com. What a big wound you have there. Let me heal you. Shiro grinned sadistically as a tier 6 magic circle appeared on her wrist. Snapping her fingers, flowers appeared on the dragon's body, wrapping him in a gentle green light that healed his wound. Despite her actions of healing him, the dragon was not happy. Watching his wounds disappear, his instincts kept telling him to run away, but his body was stuck in place.